Hello, welcome. This is Coach Stanley with the second part of the intermediate, intermezzo or in-between moves, as all these terms refer to one tactical skill. In my last presentation, we just saw what an in-between move is, and the purpose of today's presentation is to give more illustrations in order to acquaint ourselves with this skill. Um, to start with, looking at the position I have set up here, we can see very easily that black, despite being 2 pawns down, has a very overwhelming advantage through the threat of a mate on g2 um, via the queen and this knight, and white is defending with the queen on d5. Now, um, logically thinking, because attack is equal to defense, black needs to bring in more attackers, but the thinking is that if this rook goes to c2, then white is just going to block that attack by moving this bishop to d7, and everything will be settled. But surprisingly, using the intermezzo, uh, before bringing the rook to c2, black first plays an in-between move, putting the rook on c5. Now, the queen has to guard g2, and it can't go to these two squares because of the pawn and the knight. Rest, it should go in that direction. But if it goes to either the b file or the a file, then the black rook will continue with the original plan of going to c2, and now the bishop can no longer block that attack because the queen has left this square. So because of that, the queen drops to d7 to continue defending, after which now black can sacrifice this rook by capturing the bishop. The point is, if the queen takes the rook, then g2 is left unguarded. And if the rook takes this rook, then the knight will come and fork the queen via the check on f3. So this rook cannot be taken. The queen instead goes to f2 to continue protecting the mate, and now white is effectively a piece down, and black can win very, very easily. We'll move on to the next position, which is this one here. From this position, white has a pawn advantage, black has a pawn advantage, but white has a superior piece, rook versus bishop. The other advantage that black has is that both his pawns are quite advanced, each pawn just remaining with two squares before it can promote. But the thinking for white is, if this f pawn goes to f2, then the rook will just go to g8, preparing a skewer, so that the rook can check the king and capture the pawn, or indeed the queen, if at all this pawn goes ahead to promote to a queen. However, using the idea of the intermezzo, black still goes ahead playing f2, after which white also continues with his standard plan of going for a skewer, but surprisingly, there's this in-between move for black, whereupon he plays bishop b1. Now, this in-between move does a dual purpose. One, if the king takes the bishop, then the pawn is going to promote with tempo. It will promote, giving a check, and white will have no time to do his intended skewer. But also, if white starts with the check, then the same bishop will just go and block the check, and now the f2 pawn is unstoppable. It's going to promote. We'll move on and quickly look at our last illustration. In the final position, white has an advantage of 2 pawns, is leading materially, but that 2 pawns in the current position is quite insignificant. The other advantage that white has is this pin along the 7th rank, where the rook is pinning this bishop, which is also being aimed at by the knight on c6. But the trouble is that if the rook, for instance, takes the bishop, then black is ready to take the rook, because inviting the knight to capture the queen will force this file to be open, and this rook can also come and take the queen. So that exchange is not worrisome. But however, white has yet another in-between move kind of tactic, which we'll see in the following moves. So white goes ahead and takes the bishop, and accordingly, black captures back, expecting the knight to take the queen so that he also takes the queen. But before that, white does an in-between move, coming to pin the queen, such that if the rook takes the knight, the pawn will just take the rook, and that pawn will be good to march on. If this pawn takes the bishop, now the c file is closed and the knight can just capture the queen, king takes back, and then the pawn takes the pawn. The resulting position of queen versus rook, this rook and bishop, where the queen is escorting 3 passed pawns, is easily winning for white. Thank you. I'll see you in the next presentation.